What's going on? It's time for another episode of Too Hard for the Radio, transmitting from the future free state of Greater Idaho. I am the one armed madman. And with me today, we've got audio book narrator and writer George Sirois. Gosh, I just asked Sirois. I just asked you, and then I went straight back to the thing that I asked and got wrong. But Sirois, I got it right. There
There
we
you go.
go. George, pleasure to meet you. How did you get into reading audiobooks?
Pleasure to meet you too. And thank you very much for having me on your show. I think this is going to be
Absolutely.
a lot of fun. My history with audiobooks actually kind of goes back to when I was about about 6 years old, and my cousin was dealing with going through cancer surgery, and he was about like 2, 3 years old at the time, and he had asked me if I could record some of the little storybooks that I had as to when I was a kid, like kind of like just um going a little bit further back. Growing up around like 5, 6, 7 years old or so, I had those little mini storybooks for a lot of different movies. So I had them for the three Star Wars movies, for Raiders of the Lost Ark, for ET, and a few other movies like that. So what they did were they had these little storybooks, and they had a cassette tape along with them. So there would be like a little chime, and then you turn the page, and it was a fun little way to get kids more interactive with reading. So what he was originally asking me to do was to take those cassette tapes and then just make copies of them for him. So that way he could listen to them while he was dealing with his chemo. And instead of that, I decided, I'll do one better. I'll go ahead and record myself reading the storybook. And so I did. And it wound up being so much fun that it was something that I just kind of put in my back pocket and just thought like, wow, it would be a lot of fun to do that as a thing, as a job. It would be terrific to be able to do that sort of thing. And I wasn't thinking about that too much back then because I was still just a kid. But as I as I grew up and I went into theater and studied theater in college, and I there was something that I always thought would be a lot of fun, not just doing audiobooks, but doing voiceover work in general. So commercials, radio, animation, all that sort of stuff. I was really, kind of looking at that as, oh, that'd be so cool if I would be able to do that. That was pretty much where I was with that. Just felt like it was going to be something really cool to consider, but then I had to get the real job and do what I need to do to sustain myself and my family. And then in 2015, that's when I wound up losing my admin job that I had. I was working at a church over here in St. Louis, and I was very much down on myself, wondering what my next step was going to be. Was I going to go back and do a desk job, or was I going to do something else? What was going to be on the path for me? And that was when I came across an amazing documentary that voice actor John DiMaggio put together. John DiMaggio was the voice of Bender from Futurama,
Oh, okay.
and he's done like a lot of other stuff as well. He was the voice of the Joker in Batman Under the Red Hood. So he gave like that really awesome anti Mark Hamill menacing performance, which was mind blowingly awesome. And it was such an inspiration to me watching that documentary because what it did was it pulled back the curtain on all of the animation voiceovers that are done, and it's all the different fields. So it's whether it's dealing with um hold on one second. Dealing with things like anime uh, or the legacy characters that people are coming in to take over for, or creating new characters, whatever the case. And it's just an amazing, amazing documentary. And these are all just really great people. And that's what had me thinking, like, wow, I've always loved doing that. How can I do that around here? And I reached out to social media and I asked, is there anyone know of any place that does any sort of teaching for voiceover work in St. Louis? and someone chimed in and said, "Look up Clayton Studios on Big Bend." I was like, "I know Clayton Studios. I used to drive by there all the time." I called him up. I spoke to the guy who was working there, and he told me about a class called Voiceover St. Louis. And when he gave me the price for that class, I was just like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
not really in the budget right now because I got a nice, generous severance from the church that I was working for, but it wasn't. I wasn't prepared to just take a whole bunch of that and put it toward this. So instead, I reached out to my fellow authors and I said, "Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to narrate 1,000 words for you for $20 or 500 words for $10, and you can take that audio clip and you can use it for whatever you want. Use it as a little bit of a marketing tool for yourself." And as time went on, I was able to raise enough money to do that, and I wound up reaching the amount that I needed for the Kickstarter promotion that I put together, and everything was all set. I called up the studio and I said, "I got the money. Let's move. Like everything's great." And they said, "Well, here's the thing. Um, you're doing this. You know, you're the only one who's reached out to do this class for this semester. And normally we don't do the semester until we have at least 3 or 4 people included." I said, "Well, here's the thing. I'm interviewing right now for another job. It's looking like I'm going to get it. And if it's going to happen, it's got to happen now. I only have like a small window of time to really deal with this and really go forward with it." And they went ahead and reached out to the instructor, and the instructor agreed to coach me one on one. And it was the coolest thing because I got to learn from gentleman named Jim Singer, who's a veteran of voiceover work. He's done a whole lot of commercials over the years, a lot of radio, and he worked with me when it came to reading copy the right way to see like which words to properly emphasize, which ones not to, how to go into a cold reading and be prepared, ready to go, and most importantly, get comfortable behind the microphone.
Mhm.
And the more I was doing that, the more I felt like I this is right. This feels right. And I was even able to do a demo recording for both commercial and animation. So I was able to do 2 demos. Normally, I would just do 1, but I had the material at the ready to do 2. And normally, they said that it takes, like, about a couple of hours or so per demo to get it ready. And when I did mine, I was in and out the door in 45 minutes doing 2 demos. So, it definitely felt like everything was really locked in to what I was going to do. And the very next day, I started that new job and had that for a couple more years, but those guys really put me to work when it came to, um, doing some internal presentations. So I was doing a lot of PowerPoint presentations and doing different things for their educational department, and it was that part of it was a lot of fun because that was something that Jim told me that I really had a knack for was doing those sort of internal presentation types of recordings. And not too long after, not too long after I did all this, um, I reached out to my publisher and I asked them if I could do the narration for my own book. And she said, "Well, let's hear how the first chapter comes along." So I recorded the first chapter. I sent it over to her. She gave the thumbs up. She loved it. And then I went forward and 2 months later I had my first audiobook finished and it was my own book. And it was a great experience and a lot of it I learned what not to do. One of the things that I learned was not to do all of the editing after doing all the recording because that editing can be very, very tedious.
Yeah, I bet.
Um, but it was after that, after it was all finished, that I reached out to my fellow authors and I said, "Who wants me to narrate their audiobook?" I wanted to build up my portfolio. And a couple people reached out and I set up something with them on ACX, which is called a royalty share. And that is basically, since Amazon gets 60% of all your book sales, um, if you just pay the author, if you just pay the narrator, the producer, ahead of time, then you get to keep that 40% rights for the rest of it. But if you don't, then the 40% gets split between you and the narrator. So you get 20% and the author gets 20%. And so that was what I wound up doing for the first few books that I did. Now I am in a position where I can request full payment. And now things have really gone very well, and I'm still able to do royalty shares, but on a very much on a case by case basis. And now I'm celebrating my 20th audiobook being released, as
Very
it was
cool.
earlier this month.
Very cool. That's a great
So that's
story,
that's a
man.
long-winded version
No, that's a great
of my
story. I
history.
I love hearing how people get into stuff. My when I was a kid, my grandfather used to tell me and my sister stories, like
Hmm.
when we would go and visit him or he would come and visit us. And he made up these two character couple more than two characters, but there were two main characters. It was about a dog and a butterfly that kind of lived in this like fantasy land essentially,
Nice.
and he would just come up with these stories off the top of his head, and they'd be an hour long or so. And as a kid, like, we always used to beg him to write them down, so we could
Hmm.
remember them someday. And at one point he was just like, I'm not gonna do it, like,
Yeah.
you can do it if you want. And I, thought about doing it, and then I realized that I don't really remember any of the stories. So it's
Yeah.
not something that I could actually do. I was 5 to 10 years old at the time, so it's kinda hard to remember that type of stuff 20 years later. But we always wish that he would have wrote those down because it was as a kid, it was a very entertaining thing that we looked forward to. So I can imagine that that was, you know, very meaningful for it was your cousin, you said, right?
That was my cousin, yeah,
Yeah,
and,
I can imagine that was very meaningful for your cousin because when you're going through tough times, like, it's nice to have something, that family does for you to kinda pass the time away when you're I've spent a lot of time in a hospital. I was in the hospital for 4 months after I got hurt, and I can tell you that every
yeah,
second of it drags by like it's a year. You're
yeah,
just stuck there with your thoughts, and you're trying to do anything to just get outside of those walls, and a lot of
mhm,
times you can't leave, or if you can leave, you can only go to, the parking lot or something like that. Like when I was in the hospital, my grandparents brought their motorhome up. I spent my 30th birthday in the hospital, and
mhm.
my grandparents brought their motorhome up, and we just did a barbecue out in the parking lot. And it was
Nice.
like the only good day, that I
Yeah,
really spent in there because it was all bad news from day one. Like,
right.
news just got worse and worse and worse, and nothing was really getting better. And it was great to kind of just have like an escape from that for just a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So, I've always here's a couple questions that I've always wondered. Sorry, my dog is going crazy right now. You can probably hear him. Hey,
Oh,
enough.
that's fine. In fact,
It's a
it's
podcast.
funny you should just kind of tagging on to what you
Sure.
were saying before about how, like, how your relatives would come up with all these different stories. That's actually something that William Goldman did a lot with his daughters. When he would tuck them in at night, he would tell them all these different stories, and just kind of like that would all just kind of pop out of his head. And he said that that stuff was always golden, and he never got the chance to write it down, and now he can't and he couldn't remember them, and it really pained him for the rest of his life that he couldn't do that. And then finally, he decided he was going to write his daughters a story, and that was in the same sort of vein of what he would tell them at night. And he asked them, "What do you want in it? What do you want in the story?" One daughter said princesses, the other one said brides. And so he said, "Okay, that's what I'll call it, the Princess Bride."
Oh, wow.
And he wrote the Princess Bride as a result of that.
Oh, wow. That's
So
something.
So you never know what
Yeah.
really good will come
Yeah.
when you have those sort of things.
And, like, I kinda remember the premises of the stories that my grandfather they were really good, and, like, as a
Mhm.
kid, anything that your grandfather's gonna tell you was you would say would be good,
Oh,
it's
yeah, yeah.
just some but, like, I do remember them being really good and remember just, like, wondering, "How does he come up with this stuff?"
Mhm.
And he kind of just did it off the cuff, like, I know he would think of a premise, during the day, and
Yeah,
then, as we go to bed, he's got this premise and he kinda just lets it rip.
yeah.
And, like the guy's he was always really funny and he's still alive, but so I shouldn't say
Mhm.
was, he's still a funny guy. And,
Yeah.
just a talented guy. And I really wish he would have just had a freaking tape recorder going,
Mhm. Yeah.
So even if the audio was bad, we could transcribe it onto paper because it
At
was
least it's something. Yeah.
yeah, it was an enjoyable story, it was about this dog and this butterfly that were adopted by some prince in some magical kingdom, and they went on adventures, and it was just a fun kid's story,
Yeah.
and they were always funny, like, there's farting and, stuff like that would just always get you chuckling, and it was like one of the things that we looked forward to the most about seeing him was getting to hear him tell us these stories, and
Right.
he knew a lot of things about a lot of things. Like he was really I keep saying was, but I'm talking about
Right.
like when I
I
was a
get it.
kid.
Yeah.
So like you
Yeah.
get it. And he was into Native Americans, so he would, teach us like he would make bow and arrows with us, like kind of the way Native Americans did. It wasn't the full thing,
Oh,
but
nice.
it was
Yeah.
pretty cool, like getting to spend time with him as a kid. It's something that I look back at fondly.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, a couple questions about the nuts and bolts of how this thing is done. I always,
Mhm.
as I'm listening to these things, I always wonder how the pre production goes on reading an
Mm.
audiobook. Because a lot of times, like in a fiction story, especially during dialogue, you don't really know who's speaking until after the dialogue has come. It'll be like, blah, 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 said Joyce or whatever
Yeah.
type of thing. So I'm guessing that you have to read the book before you read the book.
It definitely helps. Some people will go ahead and read the book cover to cover before starting on it. It's definitely something that if you feel that's going to help you, then by all means go for it. I like to at least skim just to kind of get the gist of what's going on with the story. 'Cause I'm very story driven myself, so I want to make sure that I know where everything's going, so that way it doesn't come off as a surprise in my voice and it was just like, "Ooh, wow, I didn't know that was gonna happen." So, I
Yeah.
didn't wanna do anything that would, set kind of, set the listener askew like that. So,
So
um
do you like go through with a highlighter and like highlight, different colors for different people's dialogues, or do you kind of just like read the page before you read the page? How does that type of thing go?
well, like, it depends really, because like, one of the, my usual, my most frequent client, he and I actually go through it before I start. As a means of just kind of like saying, okay, well, there's this word here and this word here, just to kind of make sure that I am saying it correctly. And if I am missing it for some reason, or if I don't recognize it, then I can always either send him a text or I can send him, just reach out to him on the phone and say, hey, how do you pronounce this word? And then he'll reply with that word, and then just say it out loud. So he'll respond with like a voice note. And so it definitely depends on the sort of material. Like when last year when I did my first ever movie tie-in novelization, and that deserves its own little story because there's a company that's out there called Encyclopocalypse Publication. I love these guys so much. I'm a huge fan of behind the scenes stuff for movies. So any sort of like, behind the scenes stories of how like different movies got together, how many different franchises, how they became what they are, all this stuff. Encyclopocalypse has a whole bunch of those types of books. And so they have and they've already done audiobooks of them as well. So I already had the audiobooks of Slash of the Titans, which is all about the development of Freddy versus Jason.
Oh,
I
cool.
have these two amazing books called Taking Shape. And it's all about the first one is all about the Halloween franchise going all the way up to the beginning of the David Gordon Green trilogy, the latest one. And um and it goes through like the development of each episode of each installment of the franchise and each different direction that it took. So the Rob Zombie movies are included, the Thorn trilogy, the 4, 5, and 6, and H2O and Resurrection, like all the different directions that franchise goes in. It's all there in the first book. In the second book, Taking Shape 2, it's all the different premises that were going to be a part of the franchise, but then fell apart in development. And those are fascinating as hell because you get to hear just like, oh, it could have been this, or it could have been this. They could have focused on this, or it was going to wind up focusing on this. And there were all these different interviews with all these different writers of those scripts. And it's fascinating just to see like what could have been with that franchise. So that sort of stuff I am just such a junkie for. So I love hearing those. And also Encyclopocalypse has put together um very random novelizations of different films. So like they did a novelization of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Oh, cool.
And then I read got the audiobook and everything, and it's good. It's really good. And I was just like, wow, like to go to that sort of length to put together a movie tie-in of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes so many years after the original film was launched. It was fascinating. And as I was listening to it, I was just like, this is so much fun. And it gets the right sort of vibe going. And then they were working on all these other ones as well. So I was like, I gotta get involved with these guys. So I reached out to them and I sent them an email and I just said, I am a huge fan of what you guys have done. Is is it possible for me to send over any sort of samples of work that I have done to maybe get invited to be a part of your audiobook roster? Within an hour, they sent back an email saying, "Yeah, we've actually kind of listened to your samples already on your website, and we would like you to come aboard with our roster." I was just like, "Yes!" And then they said, we even have one in mind for you as well. Have you ever heard of Robot Ninja? Like, no. It was like, well, give it a take a look and everything. Let me know how it is. And I wasn't saying like no, like right away. It was just like, no, I haven't, but I'll find out about it.
Yeah.
Turns out that Robot Ninja was a movie that was made in 1989 for about 15 grand. And it was one of those that were shot on VHS and over in California. And it was about this cartoonist who had this character, this robot ninja character, and crime is so bad on the regular streets that he actually like designs an actual costume for himself to go out and fight crime as a robot ninja. And and it was a lot of fun. And it was one of those where the emphasis was really on the makeup effects because there was so much like extra there's so much gore in this.
Yeah.
And but like for a $15,000 movie, the makeup effects are really impressive. And they got
$13,000 of the movie is makeup.
pretty much, yeah. But they get like they brought in Burt Ward to do a couple of scenes. They brought in Linnea Quigley to do a scene, and they had Scott Spiegel, who he's part of like Sam Raimi's crew, and they're all like they all have different parts and everything. And so when I when I looked this up, when I looked up this movie so I could learn about it, I was overjoyed because it's on Tubi. I was like, yes. So I
Watch it for
watched it
free.
and I was like, this is going to be so much fun to do. Like, I got to do this. And hold on just one second.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm just getting over a cold right now. So anytime I get a little bit too worked up, then I got a cough.
No
And so,
worries. Sorry about it.
um,
It's all good.
yeah. Um, as I was watching this, I was like, okay, so Burt Ward's in this, so that means that I get to do my own take on Batman 66 Robin.
Yeah.
So I get to pull out the holy heart failure, kind of voice for that. So it's like, okay, that's great. And there's a scene, the scene that Scott Spiegel is in. He plays this very, very burnt out cartoonist and who puts together like really, really terrible work. And Bird is like looking through it, just like, oh yeah, I see some promise here. And the guy and Scott just goes like, "Do you really mean it? It took me hours." And I was like, I can do that voice, so I'm doing that. And so it became like something fun to take and run with. So different things here and there that I was grabbing with and running with. And so that helped me really come together, put the proper voices together for all the different characters. And the whole experience was so much fun. And it was easily one of the most fun audiobooks I've ever done. And it was a nice breezy, very brisk type of work. It's very much like a novella, format.
Mhm.
And the guy Damian Casey just does a great job with it, and it's so much fun. And turns out that like once I did my first chapter as my audition, the publisher reached back out and said, "Okay, not only does Damian love what you're doing, but he wants you to do his next book too." I'm like, okay, terrific. Then I guess I'm in. And so far, I've done 2 books for Encyclopocalypse, and I'm getting ready to do 2 more.
Very
So
cool. Very
I,
cool.
I'm excited to do that sort of stuff because like I that when you talk about like doing a movie tie-in novelization, that's the sort of stuff I grew up reading.
Yeah,
So like the chance to actually do that as an audiobook form and get paid for it, fantastic.
that's
That
awesome.
that to me, I would ask for nothing less.
I love a good B movie, you
Yeah,
know? Like, to me, a good B movie that's well done on a shoestring budget is so entertaining. Like,
yeah.
I don't know that I would call this a B movie, but, like, one of my favorites, I guess it's a B movie in recent history would be Tremors: A Cold Day in Hell. I don't know if you've seen
Oh,
that one.
nice.
It
I've
was
seen I've seen the first couple of Tremors movies,
yeah,
and
so
I
this
definitely
one
wanna get caught up on them.
dude, this one was so fun. Like, you know, all of them take place in the desert for
Yeah.
and, this one took place in supposedly, I think, like, Antarctica or something like that,
Oh,
but
fun.
they didn't have the budget to shoot in snow, so they just shot on dunes and then, like, turned the light a little bit blue and put everybody in clothes.
Oh, that's funny.
It's so funny, dude. And so, like, my first piece of fiction that I started writing after I got hurt a couple years ago, and my
Yeah.
first piece of fiction was about a producer that brought Cold Day in Hell to the theaters. And
Oh,
the
that's great.
producer's just a scumbag, just a total scumbag. And it was fun. Like I need to rewrite it because
Yeah.
I've learned a lot more and gotten a lot better at writing since I wrote it. But it was a fun story to write just because like I like a good scumbag a lot of
Yeah.
times in stories, you know, like a hero's
Mhm.
great, but sometimes you got to have a good scumbag that does something good with their life every now and
Oh,
then
yeah.
and have some sort of redeeming quality. So like I had fun writing that story. It was for some reason like it just came to me one night. I watched that movie and I'm like, how do you pitch that you're gonna shoot in sand and make it
Mhm.
look like snow? Like, who comes up with that idea? How do you pitch it? Like, what the hell happened when they were creating this movie, you
Right,
know?
right.
So
I definitely need to get myself caught up on the Tremors ones because, like, there is a definite love, um, that you can tell,
yeah,
that's, with those movies.
yeah.
Like, they're having so much fun doing them,
Oh, they're great
and
movies. They're great.
yeah.
I mean, they're not great movies, but they're great movies because
Exactly,
they don't take themselves too seriously, you know?
right.
Like there's nothing more annoying than when you've got like a B movie where you can tell that the director's just like trying to make it more than it actually is. And it's like, "Oh, I'm going to
Yeah.
make this serious movie." And it's like, "No, it's not a serious movie. Just like don't take yourself too seriously. Make it
Mhm.
corny, make it funny, like, it doesn't have to be too serious. Like, people understand that, like, you're operating on a shoestring budget and there's
Yeah.
only so much you can do. And to me, like, a lot of times, you know, uh, there's a new Stargate coming out in the next couple of years on Amazon, which I'm
Oh,
jacked up about. Like, I love
nice.
Stargate.
Yeah.
But, like, one of the things that was great about Stargate was the budget wasn't huge. You know, they didn't
Yeah.
have a big CGI budget. A lot of their stuff was real effects and makeup, and there's something cool about that. You know,
Mhm.
like, I enjoy that you don't everything doesn't have to be Transformers, you know?
Right.
You don't have to have these crazy CGI scenes, like, every 5 minutes to keep my attention. Like, I like a
Yeah.
good story, I like characters that have some depth to them, and,
Mhm.
like, I think you can do a lot with costumes and cheap effects, and, like, while I am excited for the new Stargate, and I know it's gonna have this big CGI budget, it's only gonna be 8 or 10 episodes a season, you
Right.
know? And, like, so the great thing about the old Stargate was you got, like, 24, I don't even remember how many episodes. It's like 20 to 40 episodes a season, and, like, I like
They
that.
were 1 hour long too. Like, they were good meaty sized episodes.
Absolutely, you know, I liked the 3 Body Problem books, like, those were they're not great, like, I didn't like all aspects of them, but the story itself was really good, and
Yeah.
so I was excited for that to come to the screen, you know, and one day
Mhm.
I saw that China had made a version of it for the screen. I'm like, "Oh, cool, like, I'm gonna watch this,"
There
and
you
it was
go.
like the first season was like 40 episodes, and it
Mhm.
was very Stargate, you know, in a
Mhm.
lot of ways, like, it was Chinese, but you know, it was good characters,
Mhm.
no special effects for the most part, like, or the special effects that they were using were very cheap. And
Yeah.
then America puts out their version and then it's high, you know, very expensive special effects. And they did 8 episodes. And it's like, these are 400-page, 500-page books. Like, there's 3 of
Mhm.
them. Like, how are you gonna condense all of it into 8 episodes a season? And, like, it just it's strange. And you look at, like, the cost of making the shows and, like, the Chinese version was made for cheaper than the American version, and it's 3 times as long,
Of
which,
course it is.
you
Yeah.
know, or 4 times
It's
as
sort of
long,
like
whatever it is.
it's sort of like the visual effects budget for Godzilla -1.
Yeah.
Like, I heard that, the visual effects budget for that was insanely low,
Yeah.
and it was recognized with the Oscar
Yeah.
for best visual effects.
Yeah.
So, like, that I hope is a good lesson for Hollywood to learn and just say, like, "Okay, you can actually keep things on a tighter budget and have it looking good, and and be rewarded for it." So, I'm hoping that they will see that, and,
Yeah. I don't know,
we can only
man.
hope. We can
Yeah.
only hope, so we'll see.
It's interesting, like, I had after I watched the 2nd Avatar movie, which I wasn't impressed with, it was, I think, poorly written and kind of just a redo of the first one. The change event happened at the
Mhm.
end of the movie, which is kind of strange. It was kind of like just a prelude to the next movie, and
Yeah.
my take on it was, I think we've hit peak CGI for the near future because,
Mhm.
you know, as we were growing up, I think we're around the same age. I might be a little bit older. I got a lot of gray going.
I
But a
have some
lot of
as
that
well.
was
So,
injury induced. So
yeah.
I'm only 39. I'll be 40 in a month.
Oh, see, I'm 49, and I'm gonna be 50 this year
And you look younger
this
than me,
August.
so that's
Thank you.
great for me.
Thank you.
Anyways, like, as we were kids, kind of the narrative was movies are gonna get cheaper as technology gets better and easier to produce, right? And that kind of hasn't happened.
No.
Movies keep getting more and more expensive, and a lot of it
Yep.
has to do with bullshit that Hollywood kind of does to itself. You know, you have to have this many people of this skin color or this race, or you have to have a
Yeah.
disabled person, and we have to do all of this stuff around these movies to make them more and more expensive because you've got these unions that demand more and more and more and more. And so things are just getting more and more expensive. Meanwhile, less and less people are going to the theaters. So the more expensive the movie gets, the less money it's making because they make all their money in the theaters. Like, I don't know
Well,
about you, but I don't
there've
buy
also
movies
there have
anymore.
been some other factors. There are some other factors that go in there as well. Like, one major thing is, like, when it comes to the inclusivity part of it, that's mainly been, like, a thing for maybe 5, 6, 7 years or so, like, at this point. It's been yeah, it's been pretty prevalent, since then, but that is definitely something that's kept in mind. But one big thing that really, really hurt the theater model, and it's something that Hollywood needs to kind of like come to grips with on its own, is they they made the mistake. They kind of they opened up the Pandora's box of getting of getting so many movies streaming out
Mhm.
and available to homes so much earlier than they used to be.
Mhm.
So there's no real cushion for the theaters to really enjoy because there's so many other people that are looking at different things and just saying like, "Oh, it'll be available next month
Yep.
on Amazon for me to buy,
Yep.
so I'll go ahead and just do it then." And sadly, I mean, I'm not immune to this. I'm just as guilty as everyone else,
Mhm. Me too.
with that. But at the same time, I do want to make going to the movies more of a thing. And some theaters, it looks like they're trying to kind of pivot towards that by bringing in some second run screens, so like bringing back a lot of movies and everything and just kind of giving them a
Mhm.
quick theatrical run to fill more seats. Because I mean, I don't know about you, but like if I have the opportunity to go see Airplane
Yeah, that'd be cool.
in a theater packed full of people that aren't going to know exactly what to expect with that one, I'm there. Let's go. Let's go now. Let's make that happen. And but because of the way that things are right now, and because of the prices that things are right now with going to the movies, people only want a sure thing in order to go to the theaters. So that's why we have all the sequels and all the remakes and
Mhm.
all the shared universes because it's something that's comfortable for the theater goer. So they feel like they're going to get their money's worth rather than taking a chance on an original property, which I would still love the opportunity to see my own stuff on the big screen. I am just not sure if that's going to happen. I still want it to happen, obviously, and I'm still working toward getting that to happen as if it will, with both my books and also with my short scripts.
Mhm.
Um, Something's like that's a goal that I intend to manifest for myself over and over and over again until it happens, which is I will see my work on the big screen. And whether it's one of the short scripts or whether it is an adaptation of one of my books or whether it's an adaptation of the audio drama that I did, whatever the case, it's got to happen. Um, but as of right now, the current model is just making it more and more difficult for it to happen.
Yeah. One of the cool things is like with these new AI video engines, they're getting good enough at this point where a normal person can take their story and kind of pump it into this engine and create like short vignettes, like it would be cool if normal smaller authors were able to kind of like take their books and just pump the dialogue into these engines and say create me a short film for every chapter, and then you could put it on your YouTube channel. You can in the audiobook you can say after you're done with the book go over to this YouTube channel and you can watch a short video for every chapter, and it would because, like, I read a ton of books that I would love to see on the big screen,
Yeah.
and a lot of these authors have very expensive imaginations, so it's
Oh yeah.
going to be hard like an Alistair Reynolds, like,
Hmm.
it's very hard to bring a Revelation space to the big screen because it would be so expensive, like, one of the movies that I'm looking forward to most, in the near future is Project Hail Mary,
Hmm.
which is, what's his Andy Weir's
Andy Ware. Yeah.
and, like, he gets some leeway because The Martian was such a successful movie that,
Yeah.
producers and directors don't have a problem taking that IP and turning it into a movie because they know that the name Andy Weir is gonna bring them some juice right off the bat. But,
Yeah.
like, one of my favorite audiobook series is, uh exped what is it called? Expeditionary Force,
Hmm.
Craig Allenson, and he's got again, he's one of these guys that has a very expensive imagination, and while it's very popular on Audible, who knows how that would do in the theaters, like,
Yeah.
it's not really a known IP. It's not like, I heard that, Dennis Villanueva is gonna do Rendezvous with Rama after he does the
Mm.
next Dune, which I'm looking very much forward to because I
Very
loved
cool.
those books, you know,
Oh, yeah.
that's again, it's Arthur C. Clarke and
Mhm.
Villanueva. These guys both have some juice around their names. Dune ended up being much better than I think everybody expected it to be,
Oh, yeah.
which is great. You know, I love
Yeah.
Dune. They're great books.
It's great for the if it's great for the genre, it's great for the
Mhm.
industry,
It shows
because
that you can make this long, beautiful film and people will still, like, be interested to go and see it where
Mhm.
like, it doesn't have to be Avengers where there's crazy action all the time. Like, Dune's a very philosophical book, and I feel like he did a great job in the movie without one of the things that drives me nuts about newer IP is that, like, they don't give the audience enough respect to figure things out for themselves, you
Mhm.
know? And Dune kind of like lets you think about the story and it's not
Yeah.
spelling out exactly, what you're supposed to think and how this is supposed to go. Like you get some space to kind of think about it, go, what does that mean? Why would he do that? You know,
Yeah.
how does this change the world? And it's very cool to see.
Yeah, it's very cool, and I remember, back in '84 when David Lynch's Dune came out in theaters, they had to give a booklet to ticket holders, so that way they can go ahead and just get themselves acquainted with what was actually going on
Mhm.
in the story. So, like, it was that in itself was it's one of those that I, would consider was like a fascinating failure
Mhm.
in terms of like, yeah, it failed to connect with the mass audiences. However, if you watch it,
It's good.
like you can't take your eyes off it.
Yeah, I
Like
really
it's
enjoyed it.
yeah.
And it's nothing
And
like the books. I mean, it is kinda like the books, but
yeah,
at the same
for
time, it's
for
not.
what it
For what
needed to
it was
do,
great.
to take that such dense text and to put it together into something that was not even 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
Like, I think it succeeded
Yeah.
overall. Like, it there overall, I would say it succeeded, and, um, it had this really awesome, like, weird, pervy type of feel to it
Yeah.
that just works for all of that.
Yeah.
And, just like when you say that you don't want things spoon-fed, there was an alternate cut that was made of the same movie, and basically what they did was they filled in the first 10 minutes with these oil paintings that gave like a full rundown of everything leading up to the very beginning
Mm.
of the actual film. And there was like this other narrator that was coming in, this male narrator that was taking away from Virginia Madsen as Princess Irulan.
So it was kinda like about the
So
Butlerian Jihad and all that?
kind of, yeah, like it was all just like it was such a vast exposition that it was so heavy-handed, and it was just spoon feeding,
Mhm.
and it was not as successful, and they even took away some of the extra Lynchian elements that made that original film so good. And so, like, there were certain things that just didn't work about it. And just like you said, like, it was trying to overcorrect. It was trying to spoon feed and make sure that everyone was fully caught up on things. And Lynch hated it so much, he took his name off of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he just said, like, "I don't," "Put Alan Smithy on it. I don't care." And sure enough, they did. So it's pretty wild, like, what when they that is try to do something that's not really made for the mass audiences and try to, like, try to tweak it so that way it connects with them, but then it winds up turning everyone off.
Yeah. Yeah. Back to audiobooks a little bit. One of
Yes.
the things that I've noticed about audiobooks, especially
Mhm.
I listen to my audiobooks on Audible.
Yeah.
And it seems like Audible is kind of dominated by reviews. Your
Yep.
number of reviews that you get, like
Mhm.
it's a big deal, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of this too. Like I'll look at a book that doesn't have very many reviews and go, "Meh," I don't know.
Yep.
And I think it's also kind of dominated by a couple of names that you get
Mhm.
that do the reading. Um one of my favorites is R.C. Bray and,
Mhm.
who's the other guys? I was going through my Audible right now trying to find the other guy's name that I really enjoy. Ray Porter. I like Ray Porter a lot
Ray
too.
Porter, yep.
And it seems like these guys, if you get these guys for your book, you're kinda guaranteed a decent amount of reviews because there's a good amount of people that will just click on that name, Ray Porter or
Mhm.
R.C. Bray, and just go down the list because, like,
Yep.
once you find a narrator that you really connect with, it's kind of hard to go to somebody that maybe you don't like as much. Like, I'm listening to some John Scalzi books right now
Mm.
where they're from, like, I think they were recorded in, like, 2010, and the
Alright.
guy's not great,
Mm.
like, he's not bad, but he's not great either. It's not as good as his newer books with Will Wheaton. He's not as good as R.C. Bray or Ray Porter, which, I listen to a lot of.
Yeah.
Um, it seems like back 10, 15 years ago, even up to like 5 years ago, there was a lot fewer books on Audible. So I think it
Mhm.
was easier to get a lot of reviews. So when you look at these books that have 30,000, say
Yeah.
reviews, a lot of them go back a ways. And I think that has something to do with the fact that there were fewer books to choose from at that time. So people were kind of forced more into those camps. But
Yeah.
now, like, you look at even those writers who got thousands of reviews on their earlier books, they're not getting thousands and thousands anymore. And it seems like it's becoming a little bit more like democratized in a way where you
Mhm.
don't have to get as many reviews. And you're probably not going to. There's so much to choose from on there. There's so many narrators, there's so many writers, and it's
Oh, yeah.
becoming cheaper and easier. Like I can imagine in 2010, it was expensive to get an audiobook made. You probably
Oh,
had
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
had to go into a studio to record it. You had to have
Mhm.
a professional editor because like all of those tools and that equipment wasn't cheap enough for like the general public to buy. Now, like you've got a setup in your house. I'm sure you can do
Yep.
all of your work within your house. You can probably edit it yourself if you want to. Like I heard you say
Yep.
earlier that you don't do all of your editing at once.
No, I do. Like
Yeah,
yeah, it's yeah, it's a matter for me, it's just like I gotta do them in like chunks. So I
yeah,
gotta, narrate and then edit and then post and
yeah,
narrate, edit, post. So that way it's not as tedious as it used to be. But yeah, it really does lend itself really well to be here in my walk-in closet, in my home, and that I've turned into this, studio, my own little recording studio. And this is where I've done audiobooks, it's where I've done podcasts, it's where I've done other people's podcasts like yourself.
mhm,
And it's been terrific. I love being in here. It feels like this is where I can just be me, just be the performer that I feel like I can be. And just being behind the mic, it just gets you that sort of confidence and that drive, and it just feels right, just to be here. And it's a wonderful feeling to be able to do this, especially considering the fact that like this is the way that I've decorated this whole thing.
yeah. You feel like
I
you're at
have,
home, you know?
yeah, exactly.
Where, like, I
And
can
it's,
imagine walking into somebody else's studio, you got other people around, and it's, like, kind of weird talking to yourself. I would imagine, like, that takes a while to get used to.
yeah.
I as a writer, like, I tried doing talk to text at one point to, do my writing, and it didn't work for me,
Yeah.
like, it took longer, I think, to do. I never really got good at it, but, like, I would end up having to do a lot more editing, and I just kind of felt weird talking to myself, sitting in my
Mhm.
office talking to myself,
Yeah.
And, I can imagine, like, it's easier to get over those things when you're in your own space where you've got your posters and stuff around you, and
Mhm.
like, it's your little man cave, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and like I definitely have a little bit of a museum, sort of feeling going on with it because um right, straight ahead of me is the article that was done where I got to be interviewed for Podcast Magazine in 2021. And right over here is my poster that I made for the Excelsior audio drama. And that in itself, like is a hell of a saga. Being able to do that. And that's something that I truly hope that that a lot of people who are lovers of audiobooks and are listeners of audiobooks also rediscover the art of the audio drama,
Yeah.
because there are so many of those that are available now, that you can find on Amazon, on Audible, and and through other people as well, through their podcasts. There are a lot of podcasts out there now that that have the um that have audio dramas available. I for the 300th episode of my own podcast, I use that milestone as a way of celebrating the whole thing, and then I put as a link to it, I added into it the actual audio drama, the 2-hour audio drama that was done of my own book. And that was with a full cast, it was with sound effects, it was with a musical score, and it was just an amazing, amazing experience. And I hope that a lot of people, just like what you were saying before, how there's so many people that have these IPs that and these original projects that they don't see any way going forward with them in terms of adaptations. Um, the audio drama is coming back, and it's coming back in a big way thanks to podcasting. And that's something that I wholeheartedly recommend people get more acquainted with, because that would be a great way to introduce people to these sort of stories that have these vast budgets. So by doing them like that, that opens things up to possibly getting a bigger budget in the future to actually put those effects into play.
Yeah. I really enjoy theater of the mind, like I I like putting a face to the voice, with different characters, and a lot of times, like, I'm a big, Nicolas Cage fan. Like, he's great. Like, he does a lot of great B movies. He does a lot of great good movies, and a lot of times I'll put his face on the main character of the story that I'm reading or listening to, and I think it kind of hones your imagination in a way, and it makes you more creative by, like, coming up with this picture within your mind, and we don't
Yeah.
need these big budget Hollywood films to kind of make your own movie within your head, and I think it makes you more creative, it makes you, more free to think, and I
Mhm.
really enjoy them. Like, I love, some of the audio dramas, I think, like, every once in a while, I listen to, what is it, War of the Worlds on,
Oh yeah, the
by
Orson Welles one.
Orson Welles. It's
Yeah,
great, even
fantastic. Yeah,
even today, like, I'll listen to it on Halloween every once in a while. I'll just throw it on the TV and, like, listen to it throughout the house, and, like, it's great. They did a great job
yeah.
on that so many years ago,
And
and
speaking of how how these sort of projects like forces the creative to be more creative. I mean, the best person to look at that is John Carpenter.
Mhm.
You give John Carpenter, two popsicle sticks and a piece of duct tape, and he'll give you Escape from New York. Like,
Yeah.
that's just how he operates. Like,
Mhm.
he works his best when when he has limitations. So when it came to doing Excelsior, my first book, as an audio drama, I was given specific instructions that the whole thing had to have a beginning, middle, and end that took 1 hour. And the book itself, when I did the audiobook, it came out to 7 hours. So I had to take a 7-hour long story and condense it into 1 hour. And thankfully, with some give and take and everything, we got it into 2 hours. But that was the best that I could get it. That was the most that I could condense it. But there was quite a bit that I was forced to confront and say, like, okay, well, this person's expendable, this person's expendable,
Mhm.
this scene here, that can go, that can get pushed into this. And it's when you do something like that, you learn a very, very valuable lesson about adapting your own material. And it's something that I strongly recommend any author do. Um, just as an exercise, because so many of them really kind of take a lot of what's there for granted. They'll think that if Hollywood makes a deal with them, then they're going to be perfectly fine with letting that person demand that every single scene is sacred and must not be cut, they're not going to listen to that. They're going to get a screenwriter that's going to give the best possible adaptation of
Mhm.
what your work is. And that's the main thing. So take some time to do that kind of work yourself, and you'll learn so much about writing in general, especially when it comes to screenwriting. Um, you're gonna find out what works in terms of getting that novel translated to the big screen, and it's pretty fascinating when you find it out.
Snake Plissken was my go-to Halloween costume when I
There
was
you go.
bartending in San Francisco.
Nice.
Call me Snake.
Yep. I love Escape from New York,
It's great.
and I do have a soft spot for Escape from LA as well.
It's not terrible.
Even
It's not
no, it's not
terrible.
not terrible.
I liked it too, you know? I
Yeah,
like movies like that, you know?
yeah.
I like I said, I like real effects, you know?
Mhm.
Um, the original, what's that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where he goes to Mars? I'm drawing a
Oh,
blank on
Total Recall.
Total Recall. It's kind of
Total
in that
Recall.
same vein,
Fantastic.
you know?
Yeah.
Like, you got those real effects, his eyes bulging out is such a terrible,
Oh,
real
yeah.
effect, but it works, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I really enjoy those types of movies. I think that they're underrated, and I wish everything didn't have to be so polished today,
Yeah.
you know? Like, it seems like everything has to be really polished and really clean, and, like, I don't think you have to do that. I think that
Mhm.
you can have some fun and, you know, take some chances with movies these days. Like, I
Mhm.
hope that I don't see big budget Hollywood films getting any cheaper anytime soon. But I do see smaller producers being able to create movies on a shoestring budget that are
Mhm.
really good in the near
Yeah.
future. So I'm hoping that like we're going to see a revival of B movies
I
and
hope so.
you know kind of indie films. You know, like there's some great indie films out there like you know Clerks,
Yep.
one of the best indie films like ever made, right? And I don't think it cost much to make that film, but
No,
you
27,000.
you
Yeah.
could do that for probably half the price today.
Yeah.
You know, maybe
Yeah.
not with inflation, it might be around the same, but the technology required to create Clerks today is so much cheaper than it was when they made the film. You
Oh,
know,
yeah. You can get that on your phone
you
now.
I was gonna
Like,
just
the
say
you
you
could
could make the entire film on your iPhone easily, and it would have better picture
Yep.
than the cameras that they shot on back then.
Right.
You
Well,
could
the
do the
what
editing
Kevin said what
on
Kevin
Final
said
Cut.
what Kevin said that was so prevalent was that, he had heard, a great interview that Robert Rodriguez did when he was shooting El Mariachi, and he
Mhm.
said the biggest thing that so many indie filmmakers the biggest mistake they make is that they don't, write to their resources.
Mm.
So he said that when he was working on El Mariachi, he said, I had 3 things. I had a bus, I had a guitar case, and a turtle." He said, like, "I knew all those things were gonna be in the movie." And so Kevin was just like, "Well, I have access to a convenience store." So that's why he did that, because he had access to it.
That's so cool. I never heard that interview from him. He's a fascinating guy. Like, I think that Jay and Silent Bob is one of my favorite comedies. It's just such a great movie. I've
Oh, yeah.
watched that movie probably 100 times. I used to race dirt bikes
Strike
as a
Back,
kid.
the Strike Back one?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Like, I used to race dirt bikes as a kid, and my family, we would load up in the motorhome and go to different races all
Nice.
over Northern California every weekend. And like, we spent every weekend in a motorhome for, you know, 4 or 5 years. And
Mhm.
back then, like, you couldn't really have a DVD player, like while you were driving. You're not supposed to
Yeah,
watch the TV while you're driving, but we always did. I
of
remember
course.
we were on a trip once to Washington, and my mom was on the phone, and I had one of my buddies with me, and my mom, like as she's hanging up, she's like, "Tell your dad no drinking and driving." And well, you know, he wouldn't listen to that, but my buddy
Oh,
goes,
yeah.
"He's not drinking and driving; he's watching TV." So we had a VHS player and we had just a wall of VHSs and we used to go to the video store like every time that we would leave. You know, we'd stop by the video store and grab a couple of new rentals and like, you know, One of the more memorable ones I saw while we were in the motorhome was Training Day. I remember we watched Training Day a
Training
bunch
Day
of
is a great
times,
movie.
like, such a
Yeah.
great movie. I recently saw that Ethan Hawke was on, Joe Rogan talking about Training Day. I saw a clip of it where he was
Oh,
talking
nice.
about Denzel in Training Day, and it was just interesting to hear because
Yeah, I
such a
think it's
great
the,
movie.
25th anniversary
Mhm.
of it this year.
Oh, is
So,
it
yeah.
really? God, I'm
Yep.
getting old. I
I
still
know, I feel
remember
like
watching it the first time, you know? 25 years.
I still remember picking, Denzel to win Best Actor that year.
I was
Um,
amazed that he didn't. It was such a great performance. He was
and
so
he
good.
got it. He
Oh,
won
did
it
he
that year.
on that one? I thought he
He
didn't get
won
it
for that
until
one.
American Gangster. Okay.
No, no, he won it for Training Day, and
Oh,
that was,
gotcha. Okay.
yeah,
Well,
and the,
25 years, the memory fades.
what was great about that was, like, I set up an Oscar pool over in my office, and, I made sure that everyone knew what everyone was picking, so that way no one could be accused of cheating,
Yeah.
because I had a feeling I was gonna wind up winning it, but, like, so I was just like, "Just wanting you to know, these are my picks," and, and I shared my picks on the Friday before, and because the way I said it was, like, I had 8 specific categories, and then I gave everyone the numbers 1 through 8. So you say, like, I want to wager my 8 points on this one. I want to wager my or like I want to wager my 1 point on this one because I'm not too sure that this one's going to win. So it's just like so it's very much like um each category had to be ranked in terms of your confidence. So, like, I mean, everyone was picking A Beautiful Mind to win Best Picture that year. So it's just like, so everyone was putting number 8 on A Beautiful Mind, but they were also putting their 7 points on Russell Crowe to win for A Beautiful Mind. And I knew that it's very, very difficult for the Academy to actually like award someone 2 years in a row on anything. So, it's like they'll do it for Tom Hanks, and I think they did it for Spencer Tracy. So it's just like they're not gonna put Russell Crowe in the same
What was the year
in that
before?
same
Was it would have been
Gladiator.
Gladiator? Yeah.
It was for Gladiator, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, I got a feeling like there, people are gonna say yes, he did a better job in A Beautiful Mind, and be like, yes, he did, but they didn't know that when they gave him the Oscar for Gladiator. So I just put like I think I put 2 points on Denzel for Training Day, and sure enough, that wound up winning it. And so many people that had 7 points or 6 points wagered for Russell Crowe, all those 7 points or 6 points, they all went away. And I wound up winning, like by a small margin, but I wound up winning it. And
Such a great movie,
yeah,
man. Like, it was just so good, and I think that was, like, the first time that I recognized Ethan Hawke as, like, being a great actor because he played that role
yeah.
so well. I think he got
Oh,
Best Supporting Actor in it, didn't he?
was it Ethan Hawke?
Yeah, did he or
Um
not? I don't remember.
I no, let me see.
He could have. It doesn't
Who
matter.
was it? Trying to remember now. It was just like I think it was I I know Ian McKellen was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, but I don't think he won it for Fellowship of the Ring. Um,
I can look it up while you're
yeah.
answering this next question here. So, tell me a bit about your Excelsior stories.
Yes. Okay. So Excelsior started out in 1992, and he was basically part of a little universe of characters that I created all the way back in 1985. I was in 4th grade. My friends and I were thinking of different things to put together for just to write and draw in between assignments in 4th grade. And we were all inspired by all the same things. We were inspired by Star Wars and Voltron and Transformers and GI Joe, all the good stuff, all the great IPs that that were just dropping in one after another at that time. Like we were just like we were the right audience, and we just soaked it all up like a sponge. And I wanted to put together my own group of characters that were not from those universes, but they were going to be their own universe, but they were going to be inspired by those other universes. And so I was coming up with some, and other friends were coming up with some, and we had like And then as I went to a different school from them, and then a couple years later was off to a different state, I just kept on picking at those characters. I just knew that there was something there, but I didn't know what. And sure enough, in 1992, I was like, I need a new person to bring into this. And it was around that time that my English class was learning about King Arthur, and we got really into it and everything. And I was really taken by the legend and the lore and everything. I was just like, that's the kind of character that I need. I need someone right in the middle of all of this, and they need to be all powerful. They need to have a sword. They need to, you know, really be like this badass type of character. They need to be like the center of this whole universe. And we watched the 1981 John Borman movie Excalibur, and thankfully the PG version. And so it was remarkable. Like I was so taken by it. I was just like, this is awesome. This is amazing. This is John Borman did a tremendous job putting that film together. I love it. I still love it to this day, and I still owe it so much because it was that movie that really made me think like, what kind of character, what do I need to do to bring this character to life? And I just kept on picking at it, and the word Excelsior popped into my head. And at that point, Excelsior was very prevalent because Stan Lee used it as always for his soapboxes, and he would and then there was the starship in Star Trek's 3, 4, and 6, and there was um there was the word Excelsior on the New York State flag.
Mhm.
So like everything about it, it just spoke to me. And especially with Stan, just always ending any of his rants with Excelsior. And just I was so taken by it. I was just like, that's a perfect word to use for this. And then when I found out what it meant, that it's this old English word that means onward and upward to greater glory. I
Mhm.
was like, perfect. Absolutely perfect. And so I made this guy a god in human form. And so I took elements from I've said this before. I took elements from Jesus Christ, King Arthur, and Optimus Prime,
Oh, cool.
and and somehow that wound up being like my hero. And then I utilized a lot of my cousin Matthew in that as well, because he
Mm.
wound up passing away in 2005, um, and I wanted to kind of immortalize him, and so I made the main character who is actually like next in line to become Excelsior. Um, I named him Matthew Peters in honor of him, and that wound up being like the springboard for it, because I decided I was going to originally it was going to be just like a comic book type of character, but I realized that it would actually work really well as a young adult sci-fi novel. And so that's when I decided I was going to do it. And I picked up this book, and it was my introduction to National Novel Writing Month, called No Plot, No Problem. Chris Beatty did it, and he basically gives the rundown of what NaNoWriMo is supposed to be. And I was so taken by the beginning of it, and talking about like when he talks about the history of doing of writing, and how he and a group of people wound up like sitting in a coffee shop in San Francisco, and they just kept on working at their books every day for 30 days. And I was so grabbed by it. I was just like, this is how I got to do it. I got to do it like this. And then finally it said, okay, day 1, let's go. And that's when I put the book down because I wasn't ready for it. And I knew November was not going to be a good month for me in 2008. So I decided, let's do June instead. 30 days. I'll do it then. And so that's what I wound up doing. And so from June 1st to 30th, I wrote that whole first draft. And then a couple years later, after a couple years worth of working at it over and over again with a friend of mine who decided to come aboard as my story editor, um, then I wound up putting together a an early bird package for everyone. And I said that um, if you took advantage of this early bird package, then you will not only get your own signed copy, but you'll also have your name printed in the back of the book and the acknowledgement.
Oh, cool.
And so everyone who wanted to see their name written in print, they all went for it. And I wound up raising all the money for the setup costs, for the printing costs, for the shipping, for anyone that's out of state, the whole thing. Like it wound up being a huge success for that. And then later on that same year, that's when I found out that I needed to do some rewrites, and that first edition was completely obsolete. Um, but it wound up getting picked up by a publisher here in St. Louis, and they let me do a full overhaul on it. And so anything that I'd been thinking about, any sort of changes that needed to be made, were made. I even went in and took out any bit of profanity that I had originally in that first edition, so that way it can really play to the kids.
Hmm.
And um, and it did really well there. But then when it got picked up by a different publisher, when the publisher over here wound up closing up shop, but she was very good and let everyone kind of get their rights without any issues. Um, I wound up signing up with another one based out of the UK, and they asked, "Would you be up for, um, would you be up for allowing our editing team to take a crack at this?" And see what where we can improve it in the second act. That's really where we feel like it needs a little extra jolt. And I said, I just want this thing to be the best it
Hmm.
can be. Sure enough, one of my best friends who had signed up with this publishing house, she's the one who got me into them in the first place. She's also an editor. So she was the editor assigned to this book, and she took a sledgehammer to it. But everything made sense regarding what needed to be fixed. And I went through another round of changes, and a few months later, it was so much better than what it was, and leaps and bounds better than what it was originally. So
Very cool.
it was a hell of an experience. And now that that publishing house unfortunately has closed up shop, now Excelsior is with another publishing house, and we're getting ready for a relaunch with them. But they also want part three done. Parts one and two are all finished, and parts one and two had been published by the previous publisher. Um, so I'm hoping that there are no changes that need to be made on books one and two now. Um, but now it's just a matter of kind of getting part three done and out there. But I'm hoping to see at least the first two books in the printing schedule soon,
Very cool.
because part three takes place a number of years later anyway. So I feel like it would lend itself well to getting parts one and two out there first while I'm still working on part three. And but who knows? I mean, it's up to my publisher on that. I'll do whatever they feel is necessary, and I'm excited. I'm just excited to work with them. I
Very
think
cool.
they're all fantastic people.
Ethan Hawke did not win. He was
Mm.
nominated, but
Oh,
it was Jim Broadbent for Iris, which I don't know if that I've ever even seen Iris before. I
gotcha.
recognize the name, but I don't think I've ever seen it.
Iris. Okay.
So your Excelsior book is your number one. I was just looking at it on Audible, is about 7.5 hours. And then the
Yep.
first book that I clicked on of yours on Audible was also around 7.5 hours. I'm sure your book is a quicker read and edit than somebody else's book. How many hours of work goes into a 7.5 hour audiobook of somebody else's?
Uh, it it definitely depends, because for me, I'm doing all of it as a supplemental income sort of
Mhm.
thing. So I have my full time job.
That was gonna
So
be my
that's
next question.
yeah.
Is this your full-time job yet?
And it's not my full-time job yet, but I really do like my full-time job, and I really like the people that I'm working with. I've been, I got like a good I've hit my 3-year anniversary of working with them, and they're all just really good people. I've learned a lot with them. Um, and so I feel like it's just going to keep on getting better and better with them. So I'm not looking to leave anytime soon. But we all hope that, at some point we get to do what we really love as a full-time job. And who knows what the future may bring with that. But as of right now, it's supplemental income. So I'm able to contribute maybe like an hour sometimes an hour and a half or so, um, sometimes even 2 hours to recording as much as possible. And then once it's all done, then I'll go ahead and upload everything over to my Google Drive on my desktop computer outside my studio in my office. And then I can go ahead and go through any sort of editing that needs to be done there. Thankfully, I learned the wonderful technique known as punch and roll. And what punch and roll is, anytime you make a mistake, you go to your editing and recording software, stop where you are, you highlight the mistake, and then you hit the punch and roll record button, and that takes you about 8 seconds back,
Mm.
and it lets you listen to the cadence of where you were up to that mistake, and then you get to re-record the mistake and then keep going as if you never stopped. And it saved me so much time, so much sanity, and so much um and it's made a much better product as a result of it as well. Because I used to do a thing where I would anytime I would make a mistake, I would just snap my fingers right in front of the microphone, and
Oh,
that would
okay.
create a little bump in the
Yeah, you
soundtrack.
can see it.
Yeah, and then I can basically just go to where that snap is and then delete that along with the mistake that I made that prompted it, and then and then everything will mesh together as if it never happened. So it does help doing that. Um, that way you kind of keep that momentum going. But I found out that when by doing it by punch and roll, it just feels a little bit smoother. The editing process seems a lot better. It feels like I'm not screwing up. you know, I'm really happy overall with how everything gets comes together. Now, when it comes to the length of time, it really kind of depends on the project.
Mhm.
Um, the one that I just did, it was a novella that Damien Casey did called Bride of the Living Chad. So much fun to do, and it was such a blast. And it's a smaller book, an even smaller book than Robot Ninja was, and it came out to like just over an hour and a half for the full recording, and I did all that in one day.
Oh, wow.
I was just like, I'm pumped, I'm loving this. My voice sounds good. I'm hydrated. Let's go. Let's just go. And then it just got like, and then my enthusiasm just got more and more into it. And then finally, like once I finished it, I was just like, wow, I did that whole thing in a day. And then the next day, I was able to deliver the files to the publisher,
Which I'm sure everybody
and
was very happy about.
they were quite happy. Especially, and the great thing is, this is my second time working with Encyclopocalypse. Both times that I've gotten their stuff back, no notes,
Oh,
no
cool.
pickups. And like you want to talk about something that helps your confidence
Yeah.
and something that reminds you that you actually know what you're doing with something like this, that will do it. When they come back and say, "Nope, you did it good." No notes.
Yeah. Do you, so, like, do you do, like, a pre-production call with the author beforehand and kinda test voices? "Hey, this is what
Um
I think the main character should sound like. This is what I think his chick should sound like," type of thing?
Sometimes there was one really fun one that I did. It was a satire um, called "Don't Shoot, We Come in Peace,"
Mhm.
and it was great working with the author of that because um, there's a character in there. It's like this little like this bloodhound, and he is just like kind of sitting back and watching over everything, and then every now and then he'll chime in and he'll give his thoughts on something, and it would just be like something like all these silly humans, like whatever, and I thought, like, this would be a lot of fun to put like a Sam Elliott spin on it. And so I just like, oh, just very much like that sort of like deep, rough
Mhm.
type of voice to it. And he came back saying like, I love it. I think that's perfect. I was like, good. Well, then we'll keep going forth with that.
The cool
And
thing
so
go
I
ahead,
wouldn't do
sorry.
like I wouldn't do the full run of all the characters. But once you give them like a couple of characters, then you know that they trust you.
Yeah, one of the cool things about, like, working I'm sure, like, I don't know this for sure, but, like, I've noticed this with other books that I read where if you're working with the same author multiple times, now that author can start writing characters for your voice.
Mhm. Yes. Now when it comes to the ones that I've been doing for my longest my biggest client, I just finished up book number 7 for him, and we're getting ready to jump into book number 8. And I'm really excited to do this. The fun part is that all these books that I'm doing, they've been written years ago.
Mhm.
So he's basically just tapping into his library and wanting to set it up to be put out on audio. And so that part is interesting because he's not going back and changing the prose to fit my voice or anything. But it just so happens that my voice seems to work really well with his prose. And so we got like this really interesting synergy going on with this.
Very cool. George, I could talk to you all day, but I can tell your voice is starting to go on you. You're drinking more and more water, so I don't wanna cut into your recording time too much. I'm sure that cold's probably just driving you nuts because you wanna get working and, maybe your voice is or isn't cooperating. That's, gotta be
Well,
tough.
I definitely wanted to make sure that I was able to be here for this, and I'm glad that my voice was able to hold on as much as it has.
Well, I
Uh,
appreciate it. It's been great talking with you, and
yeah,
I've been
absolutely.
writing a science fiction novel for years. I'm a very slow pecker. I write with one finger on my iPad, so it's nowhere
Yeah,
near done. I have no idea when it's not gonna be done until it's done. That's what
right.
I've told myself is like, I'm not rushing it. When I first came up with the idea, I was like, I'm gonna finish this as quick as possible, so then maybe I can
Mhm.
move on to something else. And I ended up like kind of sitting on it for a while. I kind of ran into a couple blocks that I couldn't figure out. And over the years, like the story is absolutely nothing. It doesn't even resemble the original idea that I have. Like
Those are always the
it
best
has
ones.
it has the bare bones, it's the same character and
Mhm.
kind of the same plot, but it's expanded so much and it's gotten so much better that like I'm so glad that I ended up taking the time to actually like think about it and not try to rush it. It's like at this point, like I've read enough books that I know that you don't really make it big as an author on your first book.
No.
There are very few Andy Weirs left in the world,
Mhm.
where they're just going to make it. So this is something that I'm kind of doing for myself. I don't have any kids,
Mhm.
so I'm not really leaving anything behind when I go. And like, this is something, the podcast is something good too. Like,
Yeah.
I would kill to be able to hear, I'm coming up on 200 episodes. I would kill
Nice.
to be able to hear my great grandparents talk when,
Oh,
they were in their
nice.
30s and 40s for
Yeah.
200 plus hours, like just to hear about their
Mhm.
lives and the things that they thought about and the things that they, were unwilling to tell their grandkids and great grandkids, like so it's
Mhm.
even though I don't have kids, like I have nieces and nephews, I have a stepbrother, and like it's something that I think will be cool for them to listen to when they're older. And same
Mhm.
thing with the book, I'm hoping, and because I love audiobooks so much, like I'm probably going to pay out of pocket to make it an audiobook that very few people
Nice.
will end up listening to. I would imagine, but that's, not the point for me. Like, I
Right.
wanna hear it come to life, and I want other people, that are gonna read it, even if they're just gonna read it because they know me and they wanna do a nice thing for me. I want it to be an enjoyable experience, so I'm glad I know an audiobook narrator,
Yeah.
down the
Yeah,
line,
absolutely.
who knows? Like I said, it's not even close to done. I have no idea what it's gonna you might be retired by the time it's done. Who knows?
I don't plan on retiring anytime soon, so I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, George, it was a pleasure, and I wish you nothing but success. I'm gonna listen to some of your books. I was kind of going through, and what's your number one recommendation aside from your book?
As well, I would recommend people go to my website, which is www.he'sgotit.com, as in by George He's Got It. That's the blanket my umbrella name for everything that I do. And definitely go to he'sgotit.com/podcasts, and that way you can find the main podcast that I do called Excelsior Journeys: The Road to Creativity. And you should be also able to find the supplemental, I guess I would call it like the special features section of that podcast. And it's a show called Excelsior Journeys Behind the Scenes.
Oh,
And
cool.
it's a 60 part story of of myself basically kind of going through my history in terms of the first 10 episodes are about how I got into audiobooks. The next 10 are about how I got into podcasting. The 10 after that are about how I got into audio drama and how that got put together. And then the next 30 episodes are my history of writing books for, like either stories for the big screen or the small screen, and or even the stage, because I did take playwriting in college as well. And I found all these older projects, all these older, like writing assignments and stuff that I'm definitely looking to incorporate into the story in the future.
Sounds good, man. I'm gonna have that. Now my voice is going. I'm gonna have that link in the description of the podcast. So I encourage everybody to go and check out your work.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. It was a pleasure talking with you. Have a good
As
night, everybody. Thanks for listening.